Hello there, everybody, and today we are going to be looking at building a deep water culture system. This is a really nice system. It's very basic and only requires a few motorized parts. So let's start with our net pot here. This is going to be what supports and holds our plant. We're going to want to place it on top of the lid like so, and just trace around the outside. So the reason I'm doing this is because we will want to cut a circle out the top of the lid of this bucket. However, when you do come to cut it, make sure you cut slightly inside the circle you've marked. Otherwise, when you go to place your net pot on top of the lid, it will fall through. So the hole needs to be slightly smaller than the diameter of the net pot. There we go. So now my hole has been cut out, as you can see here. And as I mentioned previously, the hole is slightly smaller than the net pot. If I drop it in, you'll see it sits nicely on top of the lid like so. It doesn't fall through, which is exactly what we're looking for. Pokes through nicely at the bottom. And you can choose to cut more holes if you wish, but for this particular system, I'm just using one. So one plant for one bucket. Next thing we need to do is to create a hole in the side of the bucket to allow our air hose to pass through. I usually do this with a drill, but you can do it by whichever means you're most comfortable. So I have a 4mm piece of hose here, and I'll be using a 4mm drill bit for a super tight fit. You can, however, choose to cut a hole in the lid of your bucket, which allows you to fill the water up right to the top without any leakage. But I personally prefer the sideways configuration just for the convenience of where I run my pipes. Now that that hole has been cut, we can set up our air pump and air stone. So the outlet is situated here on the air pump, and you just want to simply slide the air hose down onto that outlet, get it nice and tight so there's a good seal with no leakage. Then you can see my hole here, which I drilled earlier. You'll want to pass the hose straight through this hole and to the inside of the bucket, like so. Then you can grab your air stone, which will also have a fitting for 4mm. We'll slide that on there, just like the outlet of the pump. Make sure it's nice and tight, and then place your air stone in the bottom of the bucket, like so. Perfect. Now I'm going to add water to the bucket. So in hydroponics, ideally you want to use distilled or filtered water so that you're starting from absolute zero as far as nutrients are concerned, and you can measure everything. But if that's not available to you, then work with what you have. Now to add our nutrients. So the nutrients that I will be using here are an all-in-one mix. Oftentimes hydroponic nutrients come in A and B, but this is an all-in-one, and it will tell you on the side here that for every 1 liter of water, we need 5 ml of nutrients. This is not the same across all nutrients, but for this nutrient in particular, that's what we need. So because this is a 10-liter bucket, I'm going to need 50 ml of solution. Let's measure that out. It's going to be just under the bottom measure of 100 ml there. Let's double check. Yeah, that's 50 ml, halfway between 100 and 0. Let's add that in. And once added, I'm just going to stir it into the water to make sure that we have an evenly mixed nutrient solution. Next thing I'm going to do is check the EC, or electrical conductivity, of the solution, which basically indicates the concentration of nutrients dissolved in the water. This will change depending on what you choose to grow. But we have a list of appropriate ECs in the classroom for all sorts of different plants. So check there for your appropriate range and adjust your solution accordingly. If it's too low, then add more nutrient, and if it's too high, you can dilute with more water. Once you're happy with your nutrient concentration or your EC, it's time to check the pH, which is the potential for hydrogen in the solution. And with plants, this affects their ability to uptake certain nutrients through their roots, so it's important that we get it right. We want to aim for slightly acidic, which is between a 5.5 and a 6.5. At the moment, this solution is particularly high, so I am just going to let it settle for a bit and check and adjust it again in a moment. So I can see on my readings that my pH is slightly too high, so I'm just going to add a small amount of pH down solution, which will alter the pH to make it slightly more acidic, starting with a small amount and giving it a stir, making sure that it's mixed in. And I'll monitor on the pH meter at the back there. It still looks slightly high, so I'm just going to add a touch more pH down solution. Once that hits between 5.5, 6.5, that'll be perfect. Next, we'll just have a look at the air pump here and show you what that looks like turned on with the air passing through the air stone at the bottom of our bucket. So if I turn the dial here, you'll see the level of aeration in the bucket increase. And what the air stone does is it basically diffuses the airflow, so it gives a much greater surface area for oxygen diffusion for the roots of the plants, as well as disturbing the water and making sure that plenty of oxygen circulates for the roots. Now let's add the top of the bucket and insert net pot. And now we're going to add our growing medium, which in this case is going to be Hydroton or expanded clay pellets. These are great for allowing for air circulation and stability for the plants that you grow in your deep water culture system, especially with the air stone beneath. You'll see you can get a bit of movement, so it's good to fully support the plant that you're growing. Then top it off. That looks great. So without any additional lighting, that is a completed deep water culture system. As you can see underneath there, we've got great aerated water and good water coverage over the net pot, all ready for you to transplant an existing plant into, or perhaps try germinating a plant from. If you have opted to go for an LED grow light, let me just show you how to set that up. So we start with the metal wire supports and the carabiner, which will attach to the main body of the LED light, like so. The smaller ones here, they will clip on to the holes at the side. And the full-size carabiners at the top, they will attach to the included pulleys, which you will be able to mount wherever you choose to mount your LED light above your deep water culture system. So let me just show you my example of it all set up. I've used an old clothing rail to mount mine. As you can see here, we've got our on switch behind here, so let's turn that on. And then at the front we have our variable dial, so we can change the output of the LEDs. Again, each plant you grow will have specific light requirements. And I'm going to be running this particular system on a timer. So I'm going to start with a 16-hour light cycle using just a standard mains timer. And if you've never used one of these before, they're really easy to use. Each one of these sections represents half an hour, and you pull up the sections that you want your system to be off for, basically, and you can switch between timer or always on. Super straightforward, and it gives you really good timed light cycles. And with that, we have our finished deep water culture system. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully I answered some of your questions, and I'd like to take some time to just say, if you're interested in learning about hydroponics, perhaps you want to start a business and make some money with hydroponics, join us over on School. There'll be a link on screen now. It's a great place to learn everything you ever wanted to about hydroponics with like-minded people, professionals, beginners, everything you ever need. So I'll see you there.